Hello and welcome to this tutorial of how to check a mechanism. Now, usually a mechanism might not work because it's either jammed, it's dead on arrival, or some other technical problem that might be happening with it. So what you want to do is firstly make sure that it's ticking. Now 99% of the time if a clock is ticking, it means that the cogs on the back are moving and the shaft is moving because they're all connected through. And there is a problem with the hands, so the hands might be crossing over and it's just not allowing the next one to go over. So that's the first thing to check when you get the clock. So what you want to do is put the clock to 12 o'clock, and now you might see that sometimes you're trying to point it at 12 o'clock and you're getting slightly off. This is not a big problem. What you want to do is adjust it so they're both pointing up. Now, it's not recommended to use the hands when you're adjusting a clock. Doing it once is fine. The rest of the time, if you adjust it by putting your hand under, then that will be okay. The first thing you want to do is putting your hand under the clock and spinning the clock around once. Now, if you do a full 360 and both of the hands do not touch, then the hands are working great. If they touch each other, they will either slow each other down, so the time will slow down, they will wear out the battery faster, and they may even just completely stop the clock. So if you put it down on its side, you can see there's a bit of clearance on those two hands right there, which is perfectly fine. You can have more or less clearance. It's not really going to change the look of the clock if they're separated more or less, but if they are touching, what you want to do is pull the minute hand up and it separates each other. Or if it's the hour hand, what you want to do is separate those two. So you might grab the cog on the back, spin it around a little bit so it's out of its way, and you can push that one down a little bit, just enough. If you feel that you're just not getting that movement because it's tapping onto the clock, you can take off this nut, which I'll do now. So what we're doing now is we're just checking how these are. Now this one's quite straight compared to this one. They're actually both quite straight, but if you need to take it off, you can see it's possible to take it off without damaging anything. Now that we've checked that the hands are fine, they're not hanging or dangling, and the mechanism is working and the arms aren't touching, this is where you put the battery in, and you give it 5 minutes. If it's a silent mechanism, you're not going to hear the ticking, but you will be able to see the hands moving. So I always give it 5 minutes. Now, if the mechanism is the fault, and it's not the arms, and it's not the arms touching or anything like that, then what we need to do is send you a new mechanism. What I'm going to show you here is how to change the mechanism if you do have a problem with the clock. So, in general, it's quite easy to swap these mechanisms over. It's one little screw, then you slide this. It comes as a template, so it actually isn't tight. Slides out. This is the one that requires a little bit of pressure and usually just pops out. So what you need to do is loosen this nut. Now, usually that won't be that easy. You will need some sort of pliers. Just be careful not to scratch the face of the clock. If you do feel like you might be a bit worried about that, you can either go in a vertical rotation, or you can put some paper down or some cardboard down, and that way when you are twisting it, you'll have to hold the cardboard and twist, and that will take that off. So you'll have your first nut, and then your washer that comes off. There we go. It's important to keep these all in one spot so that you don't lose them. I'll keep them in shot so you can actually see it, but there we go. Because you will need those again. And we'll just put the mechanisms over here, and we'll flip this over. So, here's the mechanism. Now, if this is a faulty mechanism and you do break it coming out, then not to worry, as you will be getting a replacement. What I tend to do is just put my fingers underneath it and ever so slightly take it off. Now, if you can keep the sticky part on there, that would be great because you can reuse it. Sometimes it gets stuck onto the clock side. So what you can do there is not to worry. The replacement does come with a rubber section just around here, which means you will be able to put that on there, and it will grip the clock. It's just really so it doesn't swivel as it's on there. So now we'll grab the replacement and we stick it back on there, and what you want to do is point. The battery generally is on the lower part of the clock, and then you align it up with the 12, flip it around, and you basically do the opposite. So you'll put in your hour hand first. Oh, sorry, what am I saying? You need to put your washer in first, then your nut, then your hour hand, then your hour hand pointing up, and your minute hand. And I always like to set it at 12 o'clock. That will mean that your time is set, and then you always use the cog on the back of the clock to set your time. What's important to know here is that if you are putting these on for the first time and they haven't been adjusted, the arms may cross over. These are not crossing over, but if it does, this is made of aluminium. Aluminium is very flexible. It will not break. I'm going to show you with this as an example how flexible it is. So I can flex these quite a lot. Now obviously you do not want that sort of bend on your clock, but it just gives you an example. It is a little tricky if you do bend it that far to bend it back, but with a little bit of patience you can do it. If you go as far as creasing it, you will never get that back, because that crease is basically severing the metal, and if you do it long enough, it will come off. So a bend is absolutely fine. You can bend it as much as you like. If you start creasing it, you will have problems. Hope we've learnt something there, and it helps you putting your clock together if you have to swap a mechanism over. Thank you so much.